Hi, welcome back to class. I want to talk about how to use a synoptic parallel in your work in inductive Bible study or in exegesis. A synoptic parallel, what it does is it takes the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and it links texts that are repeated in the different Gospels. Most commonly, Matthew, Mark, and Luke have the same stories and many of the same sayings in this. And what a synoptic parallel edition allows you to do is to put those texts side by side. Now, I'm going to illustrate one that uses an English translation. Obviously, for the most detailed and scholarly work, we would want to compare the Greek text in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John with one another to really see the details. But we can approximate that without a knowledge of the original by using a good English parallel. And here I have a free resource that you can access on the web. Now, what you do with this, and since we've been working in Matthew, you find your text in Matthew's Gospel. So let's go to Matthew chapter 16, and let's just simply look at the confession of Peter at Caesarea Philippi. So if we kind of scroll down here, as you can see, I'm moving kind of fast over in Matthew's Gospel. We can go down to Matthew 16, and we will find the text at Caesarea Philippi. I went a little bit too far here. All right, there it is. So here we have it. And notice how this particular resource does it. Now, in a traditional parallel edition, you could buy one on Amazon, whether it's in Greek or in English. But a traditional synopsis will just have the columns already set up. But here, yet what you have to do is we've got here to Peter's confession. And now notice at the top here, we have purple and we have green. This indicates to us that this passage in Matthew occurs both in Mark's Gospel, that's this bluish purple, and then the green has to do with Luke. And all I have to do is click on that, and notice Mark then immediately jumps to Mark's version of Caesarea Philippi, and then the green brings us Luke's version of Caesarea Philippi. Now, have a look at this and just make a couple of observations quickly. Notice that Matthew, in this case, is the longest version. Again, you can do the detailed reading there, but Matthew's Gospel has a much longer response of Jesus to Peter's confession than we see in either Mark or in Luke. And on the same place, notice that Luke's is absolutely the shortest. Now, here's what we do in exegesis. Our goal isn't to make all three Gospels say the same thing. Our goal is to see what's distinctive in the Gospel that we're studying. So since we're focusing on Matthew, we would want to observe how Matthew is different from Mark and Luke, and especially how Matthew's rendition is much longer. And let me just show a couple things where we have some differences. If we notice what Peter's actual confession is, look at Matthew 16:16. Here it says, Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Now let's go over to Mark. This would be Mark 8:29. It says, Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." Now, notice what we don't have here. Mark didn't say, "You are the Son of the living God." And then we go over to Luke, and Luke has, "You are the Christ of God." So, we would want to make observations on how Matthew is distinctive from Mark and from Luke, and try to ask the question, what is the meaning of the differences in Matthew's telling from Mark and Luke, and what are implications that we can do? So again, when we can use a parallel synopsis to get insights into your particular gospel. And again, the goal isn't to harmonize. We don't want to try to make Matthew, Mark, and Luke say the same thing, but what we want to do is we can use a synopsis to see what's the discrete witness, function, and purpose of each one of the individual evangelists in their presentation of Matthew's gospel. Again, let's just do another one. So let's just go back and let's look at where Jesus heals the woman with a issuing of blood back in Matthew chapter 9. Here it is. He heals both the synagogue ruler's daughter and a woman of faith. And so let's click it on so we get Mark and Luke open up here. And now notice in this case, With Matthew 16, Matthew was the longest, but now look how short Matthew's version is. It goes from 18 to 26, and look how long Mark's is. So we want to note in this case that Luke and Mark are much longer than Matthew. So what is the significance of Matthew having so many fewer details? And when you answer that question, you're going to have real insights into what Matthew is doing. If you have any questions about this, let me know, and you can see in my sample work how I use the synopsis to get some real insights into what's happening. Again, I'm Brian Russell. Thank you for listening, and let me know if you have questions, and I will do my best to clarify. Thank you.